Morning, students. Today we are going to have some idea about the establishment of Mughal Empire in the Indian subcontinent. Different kinds of developments. One such development is the Bhakti movement. When you are just trying to understand the Bhakti movement, you will have to understand the causes under which the Bhakti movement has come. The establishment of the Mughal state, which was a liberal state, threatened to some extent the basic philosophical tenets on which Hinduism was resting. For example, monotheism and universal brotherhood. So such kind of strong ideas which became a part of understanding the liberal Mughal state pose certain challenges to Hinduism. So a situation had come in medieval India wherein Hinduism had to restructure itself, take it to the maximum number of people possible, and check the penetration or the percolation of Islam into the grassroots of Indian society. Challenging the situation, you have some Bhakti saints coming up who tried to literally bring down the basic philosophy of Hinduism from the scriptures, which were difficult to understand, down to the common vernacular language, wherein people were able to understand the basic needs of religious philosophy. So you can say that the Bhakti movement was a theological movement, a religious movement. In the medieval period, a challenge has come up. Politically, the Hindu kingdoms were destroyed, and you have the establishment of two Islamic kingdoms, one, the Delhi Sultanate, and the second one, the Mughal state. This establishment of these Islamic states was a grave challenge, both on the political front and on the social and cultural front. So a time had come wherein certain basic changes had to be brought about in the social structure and in understanding the philosophical aspects of life. So when you are just trying to understand the Oriental understanding of Indian philosophy has given three margas: Bhakti Marga, Karma Marga, and Jnana Marga. The Bhakti saints have taken up the Bhakti Marga to popularize the basic philosophical tenets of Hinduism and take it to the common man in a language that he can understand. And the methodology that they adopted was basically poetry. Poetry in common man's language, like for example, Kabir's Doha, etc. Or in Telugu, if you take Annamacharya's Kirtanas, etc. So there was a question where salvation became important. Life after death became important. And the idea of life after death, it is the religion which will be able to fill the gap of man's imagination with regard to what would be the position after death. So religion became an essential ingredient in every individual's life. But as the understanding of religion was limited to a select few, a situation had come about wherein it had to be brought down to the common man because of the spreading of Islam in the medieval context. So today I'll just try to focus on some of the saints who took up this challenge of preventing Islam becoming a popular religion in this country. The end goal of the Bhakti movement had been in establishing or founding a new religion, Sikhism. So if you take from Ramananda down to Guru Nanak, all these saints had the vision of the social need. And the social need was twofold. One, prevent percolation of Islam. Two, take Hinduism down to the common man. So this was the stage in which you have the Bhakti movement becoming popular in medieval India. I have taken some slides of these saints, and in each slide, I'll just give you a brief idea of what the saint was popularly trying to do. If you just look at that slide, you can see very clearly that the medium, the medium that these saints had taken up was song, dance, music, which could, by the help of which they could reach out to the hearts of the people. This was the way in which they were trying to popularize Hinduism and take it to the grassroots of the Indian society. Here, Bhakti means devotion. Devotion and submission to a personal God. It can be anyone. You can take Rama, you can take Krishna, you can take any God of your choice. You surrender with loving devotion. So this was one of the important idea that they were trying to take it down to the common man. And in the path of the devotion, why this devotion and why this path? This path of devotion was mainly for salvation. The bhaktas, or the devotees of a god, the bhaktas or the devotees of a god do not recognize any distinction. They do not recognize any distinction of caste or birth. Okay, so this has a social implication. This has a social implication. They believe in the unity of Godhead. They believe in the unity of Godhead. Equality of men. Okay, see, they're trying to link up the idea of God to the social understanding or the social need of God and mankind, and are opposed to religious, monotonous ceremonies. This was the basic way in which they were trying to make people realize the importance of identifying a God, submitting to him in sublime devotion, and keep on taking him at the subconscious level, which will ultimately lead to salvation after death. So this was the necessity in which you find the Bhakti movement emerging. If you just try to understand, most of the ideas that these Bhakti saints were trying to popularize among people were either from the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads. This movement was revived with considerable force in northern India during the 15th and 16th centuries. The movement started in South India and then spread to North India, and in the 15th and 16th centuries, it became very popular. One reason was that for it to become popular and people to get attracted towards the movement, one reason was that in the society, in the contemporary times, there were many evil practices that had crept into Hinduism. Idol worship, to mention a few, idol worship, untouchability, distinction on the basis of caste, religious ceremonies were on the increase. The idea of devotion, the idea of submission to God was pushed to the background, and all these kinds of activities like social activities like untouchability, religious ceremonies, they were taking over or they were coming to the foreground. So this was an important development, and these kind of circumstances had shown the need for reforming the society as well as the religious understanding and religious practices. We can also say that the influence of Islam, because of the liberal state, was also attracting the masses. The unity of God, as I said, universal brotherhood, etc. And these Islamic saints who were functioning in the Indian society, they were trying to discredit Hinduism, taking these two basic social practices like untouchability and caste system. So they were trying to bring about a homogeneity in the social order by trying to attract the masses or the majority of the people towards Islam. This was the challenge. This was the challenge in the 15th and 16th century for the saints in India. As a result of which, you have the Bhakti movement becoming popular in the Indian context. Now, I will show you images of some of the most popular Bhakti saints in medieval India. Here, we have the image of Ramanuja. He belonged to the 12th century. He had come from a Brahmin family, was born at Sri Perumbudur near Madras, and spent his youth in Kanjivaram. He preached Vaishnavism in the south and declared that Bhakti is the sole means for salvation. His emphasis through Vaishnavism was, he tried to popularize Vaishnavism, and his emphasis was that only Bhakti can bring about, only surrendering to the God can bring about the salvation. Okay, Ramanujan was very popular for his Vishishtadvaita philosophy and tried to correlate the Bhakti cult to the tradition of Vedas, to the tradition of Vedas. he advocated the Bhakti Marga and argued that devotion to God is more important than knowledge. Submission to God is more important than knowledge. He also stated that the path of bhakti is open to all. It's not conditional. It is not based on certain criteria or consideration. It is open to all. The tradition of Ramanuja was continued by Ramananda and Vallabhacharya in the north and in the south. The next photo that I am showing you is that of Ramananda. Ramananda was born in Allahabad in the 14th century and mostly lived in Benares. Mostly lived in Benares. It was through him that the Bhakti movement became popular in North India. The movement became popular in Benares in the beginning, and later it spread to the rest parts of northern India. He was the first Hindu reformer who preached in Hindi. Hindi was the common language in those days, and he was the first man to preach in Hindi, the language. Hindi was the language of people. Sanskrit and other languages coming down from the Vedic times were not the languages of the people. In the south, you had 3-4 different languages. In the north, Hindi was very popular. So you have Hindi, a dominant language in the north, and in the south, you have 4 to 5 languages. So Ramananda is credited in the 14th century with taking out the philosophical understanding from the religious scriptures and trying to put them in a popular language, that is Hindi. He regarded God, or he preached God as a loving father and worshipped him under the name of Rama. He popularized the cult of Rama or the worship of Rama in North India. And he had a very huge following, a large following. His disciples came from different cross sections of the society. Different cross sections, not one group, different cross sections, without any distinction. And he was very popular in North India, and he also came up with a sampradaya which became popularly known as the Ramanandi Sampradaya. His most remarkable follower was a Muslim by the name Kabir, a weaver by profession. Kabir was a weaver by profession. As I was trying to tell you that there was no kind of a distinction. There was no kind of restrictions. Anyone could become or join the disciplehood of Ramananda and follow him. So the next portrait, or the photo that I am going to show you, is that of Sant Kabir. Sant Kabir was born in 15th century. There are different stories about his origin. Some say that he was a born Hindu of a Brahmin widow, but others say that he was a Muslim weaver and his mother's name was Nima, who had come under the influence of Hindus. Whatever it is, by profession, he was a weaver, and by trade, he was a weaver, and was the most famous disciple of Ramananda, as I said earlier. He married Loi, who proved a great help to him in his mission of popularizing the best of different religions in the form of dohas in Hindi, in the northern India. But his movements, his traveling was extensive in Bengal and Bihar. He raised a powerful protest against the distinction of caste, the Brahmanical supremacy, going to pilgrimage, and worship of idols. He taught that Allah is the name of Ishwar and is present everywhere. You can see the influence of Islam on Sant Kabir. He asked the Hindus and the Muslims to live like brother. He was talking of homogeneity. He was talking of the need for maintaining social harmony. And be truthful and pious in life. The only thing that he put emphasis was on that every individual should be truthful and he should lead a pious life. He had both Hindus and Muslims as his disciples, and he is very popular for his dohas in Hindi. He was there during the time of Sikandar Lodi. Sikandar Lodi, when he was ruling Delhi, he is the contemporary king. He died at Maghar. The next important Bhakti saint that I am showing you is Guru Nanak Dev. He is the founder of Sikhism. Nanak was born in 1469 at Talwandi, now called Nanak Sahib, in Sheikhpura district. His father was Kaulu, was a Patwari, and also had a petty shop. At the age of 30, Nanak became a sadhu and traveled about the whole of India preaching the cult of bhakti. His teachings were similar to that of Kabir. He preached about the unity of God, laid emphasis on the worship of true name, and believed in the necessity of a guru for the worship of true name. He condemned the caste system, idol worship, claims of the Brahmins, blind superstition, meaningless religious rites, and laid stress on noble deeds and sincere devotion to God. His followers became Sikhs, and the followers of Guru Nanak Dev ultimately became Sikhs, and the religion Sikhism was established. The next photo that you can see is that of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born in 1485 in Nadia in Bengal. His original name was Vishwambhar. He was very learned. He was a very learned man. At the age of 24, he renounced the world and became a sannyasi. He was an ardent devotee of Krishna. And the Krishna consciousness is credited to him. He preached about the doctrine of love and the devotion to Krishna. He sang songs in praise of the God, in praise of Krishna, and held the kirtanas, which were very popular in Bengal and some parts of northern India. He spent 18 years in Orissa and Bengal, and he traveled in Punjab, and some of his followers who were following him were popularly known as the Gopis. He also had taken up the method of dance, music, and song, and to popularize the Krishna consciousness, to bring about some kind of a reform in the society. and challenge the spread of Islam in the medieval period. Chaitanya Prabhu died in 1533 at the age of 48, quite an young age, but had become very popular through his, kirtanas on Krishna in Bengal and Bihar. Millions of people then and now also worship him on parallel to Krishna. The next portrait that I am showing you is that of Vallabhacharya. Vallabhacharya belonged to Andhra Pradesh. He had visited the court of Krishnadevaraya during the period of Vijayanagara and had proceeded towards Mathura in northern India. He left his residence at Benares and commented on the Brahma Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita. His commentaries were basically on the Brahma Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita. And the kind of philosophy that he propagated was Suddha Advaita. The philosophy or the doctrine that he propagated was Suddha Advaita, or pure monoism, monotheistic or monotheism. He identified the individual soul with the ultimate Brahman or the creator, and did not subscribe to any distinction between the two, that is God and the man. He did not see any kind of a difference between God and man. He also had popularized the Krishna cult, and while popularizing the Krishna cult, he tried to detach himself and advocated his followers to detach themselves from the worldly pleasures. His Pushyam Mitra Marga was a way to spiritual bliss. It was very illogical, and it was very illogical. His argument was basically, it was very illogical to think about the worldly suffering, and this suffering should contribute to spiritual happiness. This was the basic philosophy on which he was trying to move or evoke the thought dynamics of the people. The Radha cult is objectionable form, and he gained popularity in India. So this was a very important saint, and the next saint that we will take up is Yogi Vemana, and he was very popular in Andhra Pradesh. You can see a Telugu poem, and the meaning of it is also given. It speaks about the speech and the importance of speech and the way people speak. So all this become very important. The date of Vemana is disputed, but scholars assign him the 16th century. He was the greatest moralist in Andhra Desha, and this Shakta is an extremely popular composition. Shakta, a composition. He condemned meaningless attachment to old orders of life and old things, and attacked, as usual, like all the Bhakti saints, attacked idol worship, the caste system, and he was able to move and reach out to the hearts of the people in simple, harmonious words. You can see that poem in the photo. You can understand every word, which is very simple word, which is common man's language. He preached about humanism, and this was the essence of Vemana's philosophy. Like Kabir, he was a medieval poet saint. He believed more on the oneness of God and in universal brotherhood. However, Vemana was prejudiced on his views about women. He was prejudiced on his views about women, and he wrote that women are undependable and are a source of evil. So this was highly objectionable, but the rest of whatever Vemana had said had become or made him very popular in the 16th century in the Andhra Desha. The next photograph that I am showing you is that of Tulsi Das. Tulsi Das was there between 1532 to 1623. 1532 to 1623. He was the author of the book, very popular book, Rama Charitamanas. Rama Charitamanas. He was the author of that book. And he was a great devotee of Lord Rama. And he came in contact with the Emperor Jahangir. And he had a long life and devoted to the inculcation of the bhakti based on lofty morality. Bhakti based on morality. That was his emphasis. And he also founded a school to preach this. And he was a follower of Advaita Indian philosophy. And his Ramayana is the vast majority of the people of Hindustan have literally learned this by heart. They literally learned this by heart. So he was also very popular in the northern parts of India. The next saint that I am showing is that of Sant Tukaram. Tukaram was born in 1600, and he also had put more emphasis on moral evaluations as aids to bhakti. If you maintain morality, you will be closer on the bhakti marga to God. He is also popularly called the Maratha Kabir. He inculcated a rational outlook in religion and morality, and condemned idol worship and Advaita. He condemned idol worship and Advaita, and most of his hymns, he was also had used hymns as a form to reach out to the people. He had put emphasis on the transitoriness of human life and the evil of sensual gratification and the glory of ascetic ideal. These were the three areas on which he had put emphasis. In summary, I would like to quote K.M. Panikkar, who had observed that the Bhakti movement was a new interpretation of Hinduism in terms of Islam's monotheism and egalitarianism. But its religious doctrine was that of Bhagavad Gita, whose summons were to surrender all and take refuge in God. The main effects of the Bhakti movement has been, the main effect of the Bhakti movement has this. This was what one of the prominent historians, K.M. Panikkar, has quoted or made his observation about the Bhakti movement. One of the most important social implications of the Bhakti movement was that it had liberalized the caste system to some extent. It had helped the lower caste people to understand the idea of God and give them some kind of self-respect. And it had challenged the supremacy of the Brahminical order in the society. And the reformers preached in the local language. So local languages became popular, and it contributed to the development of vernacular. And the movement had reduced or minimized the social bitterness, the prevailing social bitterness that was there in the medieval period in this particular time. So these are some of the benefits that we have, social benefits, I should say, social benefits that we have with regard to the Bhakti movement. So the establishment of the Mughal state had social implications also. It contributed to some kind of social reform movement, and we can consider the Bhakti movement as a religious reform, social religious reform movement. Thank you.